So, hi everybody and welcome back to Unreal Engine 5 full game tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 26 and in this video we continue with our game, of course. And let's check again how much time I have. So, I said I will finish this game and release it before this epic mega game starts. And this epic mega game 2022 will start in 1 day and 1 hour. So, I have not much time left. Let's see how much we can finish. Or can we finish anything? We will see. So in this game, what we are doing, let's go fast to our overview. We are in the section gameplay. Okay, then let's see what we have to do in gameplay. Let's open up this one and we see we finished here some parts. So we finished all level design, player character, obstacle spawner, gameplay widget, and game over widget also in our last video. All very simple ones, not let's say only the very core systems, but that's enough. And now in this video I start with gameplay coding, and gameplay coding has several sections because there are different kind of gameplay codings which we have to do and also to test. So, and special in this video I will set up the character collision and the character life, and also in a very simple way. And in the next video probably the save game system, so that we can save also score and lives and all this kind of stuff. So let's see, how does this look like, what we do here? You can see here, this is all that what we made, and you can already see I have activated here collision. We have to set this up a little bit and talk about this. And when I collide now with one of this obstacle, you can see my life dropped down, and when my life dropped 0, the game over screen pops up. And this is that what we do in this video, but in the next video we will also set up, you can see we have here a score, and this score we have to we have to compare with the high score and then override it in the save game if the score what you have here is higher with the high score. So that, and then we have of course set up also a load game. So it's load game, save game, probably in the next video. All right, with that said, let's get into it. So I have different sections. First of all, I want to set up the collision. So we are concentrating first on the collision, and then we jump later here to this widget where we set this live here. All right, let's concentrate on collision. So what I do first is you go here to the player character. You go here to your game folder and find your player character. In my case, I could go here to the world settings, actually select this one and my player, not game mode. You select here this default pawn character, and then it's this one here. So this one pops up. This is my player character. And what I did is I created, normally you can use this capsule component here in the middle, but I created a special collider, which means I'm not using the capsule component. Normally you can use it. Why I'm not using that? I was testing this and then I deactivate all. But if you make a special collider like me, what you have to do is, well, let's say what you can do is select first the capsule component, write here collision or call, perhaps call, it's enough, and then it jumped to the section where you have collision. Then you open up this one and set to all other things what you have here to no collision. And that's very important that you only set up your collider. As in my case, I added here a special collision. What you do is just go here to the add, right here collision, and then you have here different kind of options. Free, I selected this box collision, and then this box collision I called collision setup, and you can see it's this box collision here, and I set it here up. And the only thing which should have a collider in my scene is this collision box here. All other things, for example, I have here also the static mesh. I go there to collision and set to no collision. So with other words, it will ignore all because I set here no collision. And the same thing I do with all other things. Skeletal mesh, no collision. If this arrow would have also a collision, I would set it to no collision. But you understand it, right? Set all other things to no collision, because with this setup, you can exactly aim for that what you want collide. In my case, I want only that this collision setup should collide with anything and react to anything. All other should have no collision. And this setup is generally here not so important, but in other games, for example, if you make a character game with different kind of collision, sometimes you want have different body parts collision, then you activate one part, the other part, and the other part not. But important is why we are the reason why we are all time deactivating in general all the other collision is if you have multiple collisions, it can happen that you have multiple overlap events, and that can cause problems. But if you have one collision, one setup with overlap, then it will only overlap really one time in there. So that's the real reason, because it can happen that with multiple collisions, like I said, I had several games there. For example, the static mesh had a collision, and then I had a collider who has a collision, and then I overlapped it all time 2 times, so it performs this overlap function 2 times, and then it caused a big problem. So make this, and this kind of stuff you are doing for your obstacle too. And we have only one obstacle, and at least I have only one obstacle. So I go here to my game, jump here to my obstacle folder, and you can see I have this just one obstacle. I open this up, and here is another thing very, very important which I have to change. And the reason is I created here again, I wrote here collision, and then I selected this box collision again, and this box collision you have to make root here. And the reason for this is when you make it not root, I don't know why, the block events are not working correctly. I think overlap worked anyhow, but block was not working. And I don't know this how they implemented this behind the scene, but you have to make this collision here at this point root, and in character not, because there you have already a capsule root, which will work. Okay, so here you set this collision which you create to the root. I mean, you override your root with this one. All right, and then again, the static mesh collision, you write col and say no collision, so that you have only the collision with that. So now you have 2 colliders, and they should communicate with each other, which means we set the colliders now up. You select your collision, this in my case I added collider. Of course you can use here this capsule component, and you don't need to add this one, but in my case I added my special collision box here, you can see. And we can set this up. So how we set this up, you select this, you go to the details panel, you go to the collision sections, and this time I selected just custom. First of all, you can here select different. I selected just custom. The next thing I selected here is collision enabled query and physics. I think that's not really necessary to set up. We could use just query, I think. No, physics, not query. But this one, I set it just fast up without thinking too much. This one will probably work, so you can test this, but this one will work also. This query only, no physics, because we don't use here physics, I think. And anyway, set this, you can test it and set it for that what you think it's good, and read of course the documentation, what the difference is and so on. If there are some advantages, like something like that. In my case, I don't care so much at this point, because it's not a big difference here. And then this one is my player character, so I set here the object type to pawn. I'm a pawn, that's okay. And then I set first all to ignore at start, then all should ignore. And now I go down and have to set only overlap what the other object type is. What I mean with that is you have now go to the obstacle, you go here to the collider as well, you go here to the collision section as well, and then you read here this object type, and it says here world dynamic, right? So you again here, of course, I set up this collider again custom. I set again here collision enabled, and object type here world dynamic. So here I have world dynamic, and here I have pawn. And if they should overlap, because I need a overlap, not block, if they should overlap, this both collider must set up so that they can communicate with each other, which means in player character you say you want overlap with this obstacle, and this is a world dynamic. So you go back to your player character to the collision section and set here overlap response, then object response here, and you say not pawn, because we are the pawn, but we want communicate with a world dynamic, because here this one. And important is, if you set this one up, compile, this will not work. Because, why will this not work? Because the other object, and that's very important, must set up that you want to communicate with it as well. So you have to go to your obstacle. The obstacle says, I'm a world dynamic and I will overlap with pawn. Here's the pawn section, and you go here to overlap. So you can see this both must set up to each other. The world dynamic, I'm a pawn, I overlap with world dynamic, and this world dynamic says I will overlap with pawn. And if you set up this way, then they can communicate to each other, which means they can make an overlap event. Very important as well, of course, here on top, this checkbox must be selected. So it says here generate overlap events, because we are using this overlap events in a moment. And the same thing here. And then there is one more setup which we need only for development purposes, and I want to see this collision box only to see how this looks like. Later we deactivate this, but how we can make this collision box visible, you go here and write you select, of course, your collision box here again, and then you write here hidden in game, and you deactivate this one here. It's probably activated by default, so it should be hidden. Now for test purposes, only for development purposes, we deactivate this, and this one you do for the other one as well. You go here, write hidden, here hidden, and hidden in game, and then you can deactivate this one. And then you compile both, of course, save this. And what you can see now, first of all, is you can see that my, well, let me pause this. Let's make a pause. You can see this one. We have now, we see the collision boxes here, right? And this is only for development purposes. Later, when you are happy with the collision, then you can just deactivate this. And let's go on. But we have to set up the next step, which is now how we overlap, right? So let's go to the overlap settings, because we have set up now our collision. And I don't need this hidden because I already tested, but let's keep it till I finish all my tests. So the next step is our overlap. So first of all, where we set up this overlap. So most time we set it up in our event graph. So we have here as this overlap here, by the way, you can set up in better places, perhaps here, and different places. Important is, like I said, online games, you would set all important data like live, player live on the server, but we are making a simple single player game, so I don't care if I set it up here in player character or in obstacle or wherever, because like I said, you can cheat in a single player all time, and that's why it's not very important where you set it up. Just set it up so that it works. All right, with that said, first of all, I create a overlap event. And what should overlap? Of course, my character. So I want that when my character is overlapping with this collision box here, one of this obstacle, I mean, then I should lose life. So what we do is, first of all, we go again to our viewport, and here you can select this collision box if you want. You don't have to, you can select it here by the way too. And then you can right click and say here create overlap events if there is anywhere this setup here, add events, and then on component begin overlap. But of course you can make this one as well here. You go here to the viewport, select this collision box, and then you scroll down. So you have two options here. This one is the viewport version, but and if you don't want to go here down and click this on begin overlap here, then the other version is you can set like that here, add event and on component begin overlap. Where is this on component? Wake up on component. Anyway, you will find it here, and then you will have this box here. So, and I already marked this color is just a marker that I have to explain you this code what I do now. Let's start from start, which means now when you click on begin overlap event here in your character, you have this box. And what we do is the next step is I have now an overlap event, but I have to cast to the other actor with what I want to overlap. Let's do this, and in my case I want overlap with an obstacle, so I cast to it. The actor is my BP. In my case I have only one obstacle, so it's perfect. It is the BP obstacle. And then that's my overlap setup. Here we can write already a comment, overlap obstacle, and let's do this one here. The next step is what we want to do. So here this is already for overlapping. The next step is we want to do something, but we can test of course this one if this is working. Before we go on, we can test if our collision setup is working, right? We are not sure, perhaps. Then you can write just print string, for example. Okay, again, whoops. Here you write print string, and when you are overlapping and all is working, then this print string would say hello. Okay, let's say test it, and now I have not this live setup, but it says hello, so which means I'm indeed overlapping. That's good stuff. So far it works, but now my live is not working. Our next step is set up this live here, and I made again a very cheap setup. When I say cheap, it's very simple, and you can make it later better if you have time. So this one, our test work, this is overlapping. And what I did for a live setup is, first of all, you go here to the variables, you press the plus sign, create an integer and call it, for example, player live, like I did there. I call it player live 2 because I already created one. And then you set it, for example, a number. In my case, I use a full number because I have no half lives, and so if you want to have also half lives, you can make a float if you want, but in my case, full numbers is okay. Then you compile, save, and then you can set up a default number. In my case, I set 2. Then I go here to the select my live. I go here to the details panel, go down to the default value. I set it here to 2. All right. With that said, now I can just write a logic, which means all time when my character is overlapping an obstacle here, this is this block here, then I subtract from my life 1. So this is just a very easy subtract function, which means just to take your life here, get this one, and you said, okay, when I overlap here, I want that you subtract 1. So write subtract or something, then you have the operator subtract. You write here the number 1 because we are subtracting 1, and we are setting this value back to our life, but this time as a set. And this is then our new life, and that's already we do. But when we do it this way, here's one more step which I added. This one is working already. The problem here is If you normally it's not a problem because we will make here also a pause menu, I mean a game over menu, but just optional if you want clamp this. Clamp is a special note which says it should not go below a special number and not higher a special number. So you can do that, what I mean. You will see this clamp in many tutorials. So you can say clamp, and like I said, clamp means just go not over a special number and go not below a special number. In my case, my default number is 2, which means my max number is 2, and I will all time subtract 1 when I overlap with an obstacle. So it should not, it will go down to infinitely down if I have not here this clamp. So you can say, okay, go not below 0. At 0 you stop, and when we do this print out, let's use our printer again and test this if this is working. And what you can do is here, you can just connect this one. It is auto-converted. Auto-convert means just is convert this integer to a string. So we can print it out. That's nice feature here. And we can test this if this is working. Let's start. And here we will see the number. So here is my 1 because I started with 2. I overlapped, it subtracted 1. And here is my second. And look, the 0 will stay now because I have clamped it. It's all time 0 now. It's not going down. That's the clamp doing. So sometimes it's very important that the value is not going down a certain number. In our case, it's not so important because we will make anyway a game over call after 0, but it's good to have. So this is working. Also test it. Let's write here a comment, and let's call this one. Oh, I'm using all time this one. Huh? I want not use this variable, just so I delete this variable. I have already a variable, that's why I'm not using this one. I'm using this variable here. It's the same thing, just another variable name. And let's do this one. And let's do this one here. So this one is working because I'm commenting here already. That's why commenting. And let's say here set live. Set live. Set live. No, subtract live, not subtract live. That's better. Something like that. All right. And the next thing is what I'm doing there. Let me see. Play alive equals 0 branch. This one is nothing. That was just a wrong thing. And I think that was that for this section here. Very nice. We can delete this one. We are finished actually, and this one I want not. So I want this one. And the reason for that is you can see I all time don't include the first thing, and the reason for that is all the backstage here, all the backcode here, you can, if you want, collapse to a function, which means you can make function a macro or something like that. I'm not doing this because if I read just the first part here, it's like a function body, so you can just concentrate here on the first part and comment here it, and then later if you are interested you go just here instead all time opening up separately. But this is just style, and yeah, other function collapsing is also okay, but yeah, it's just style. All right, let's go on with that. We are not finished. We have now set up here reducing our life. So player life, it's reducing here when we all overlap. That's very nice. But we have now to connect this one to our widget here. So that's a problem. We have now, okay, here is already set up, but we have to connect this one to our widget. And how I connect this to our widget is the next step here. And again, there are different kind of ways to do this. I made again a very simple one, probably not the most efficient one, but a very simple one. And what I did is, first of all, is here something? Here's one more thing what I wanted to mention before I go on. In obstacles, we had here some code which is not finished. It was just for demonstration. this is the projectile movement, right? So I showed you this movement setup that it goes down. Let me show you this again. So here we have, it goes down. I think it's not bad, but the problem here is what I said here, that we can change this one in the coding section, but I think that's not so important. This is, let's do it to the creative part, not to the core part. I think the core part is still okay here. And I say here just projectile movement. Oops. Projectile basic movement. Let's call it something like that. And here we are setting the color as it's done. It's done. It's okay. All right. Okay, that's also done. Because normally this kind of stuff you can change in the coding section again and make, for example, the projectile movement, like I said, I think in one of my videos. If you want to go a level up, then you can speed up this movement component and something like that. We wanted also code in the gameplay section, and we will see if I have time for that. If not, I use just this basic setup. If I have time, I will add here some more other setups. So that's that was just a side note. Let's concentrate us here to our life again. So our goal, we created here our lives, and now we need to set up this one in our widget. What I mean with setup in our widget is, first of all, you go to your widget, which widget we need. The widget which I'm using is, of course, my gameplay widget, because you will see this in the gameplay widget. This is here, and then here we are interested in the number 2 here, and there are different ways to do this. You can select this number 2, which is a text 2, and then you can go here to the details panel, and here anywhere, here's the text where it says content text, and then you can create here a binding. This is a function, and I'm not using this one. I make it another way. What I'm doing is I go here to the graph section, and now what I do first is this construct here is not there. First of all, what you do is, I will explain this in a moment. This is just a very basic setup, but all time in widget blueprints, there is no begin play like in blueprints, but there is another node which is called event construct. So this is the equivalent thing to, let's say it's similar to event begin play, but this one is a construction script. It's more like a blueprint has also a construction script, by the way, but this one has only this one. We use this one here, similar like event begin play, where this our start point is. And what I'm doing here is I make just a reference to my player character, because my player character has this variable. I have this variable here, and I need this variable, right? I need this variable in my widget. That's why I make just a very simple reference. And how I make this reference, I said here get player character. Oops. Let's get player character, and then you see there is a player pawn, player character. And then, or you player pawn is probably the same thing. And then we the index is 0, because that means it's the first index, and we have only one player character, so it's all time the right one. Don't worry about that. And then we cast it to our player character. In my case, it is called here this BP player character. So I have only this one, so that's very nice. And then we promote this to variable. I did this already, promoted to variable. So you right click here and promote this to variable, and then you have this variable here created. All right, that's this setup, what you do. So and then we have this kind of stuff. And the reason why we did this is just to get what? A reference to our character. And why we need a reference to our character? Because we want to access this variable now. For example, here I can access with this or from here with this reference. I can't get this reference, and here's my player life. I think here is the default values, and here is this get player life. But this is not the way we want get to it. There is another way with the widgets, which I make use of it. And the other way in widgets is you go to your widget designer, you go here now, select this text here, and here you see there was this create binding what you can do, but we are not creating this one. Now, if you created the other things, you have now this reference here. This is my player character. And now you can see all the public variables are here. And now my life is also here anywhere. Where is it? Here, player life. And then you select just this player life. And this one is now connected to your variable, which means if your variable player life is going down, this one will update it and go down too, because this one has behind the scene update function. So, and when you start your game, then it looks like this. So I'm overlapping with this object, and it goes down, and it goes down. And the next step is we have to set up this game over screen. I already set it up, and I show you how we set this one up. This is our last step here. Let's make this one as well fast. So how we make the next step. So far, so nice. We go again here to the graph and this game over screen. What I do is now, I think I forgot something here. Could be this. Let me see why I have only one marked place. No, I don't forget it. It's okay. So what we do is we are taking the information about this player start. I get the value. So I'm interested again in this player life. And if this player life is 0, then I want call, and we already created this function, this down here, which is called game over, because when my life is 0, I have no more life. Game is finished, and I want call this. So what I have to do is just check when my life goes to 0 that I call this custom event here. That's all what I have to do. And the important thing is you have to find now the right place where you can do it. I did it in a very bad place, like all time. This is a tick event, and this is not considered to be the best place to do this. You should normally avoid something like that. But like I said, this is a very simple game. This will not break our game, even if it's checking all time per frame. This kind of stuff. This will, but it costs a little bit performance, okay, but it will still work. It is so simple, our game, that will still work, and because I know it will work, that's why I just did it here in the tick. But it's not a tick event where you are calling a million of functions. It's just a simple check here of our variable. And yeah, normally you can do this a better way. For example, you can invoke anyhow in a different way, that when you are died, that this function is called instead of all time checking it here. And I skipped this part because that would take a little bit more. So I make the easy route, which is, first of all, in our last video we had something like that normally. So we start here with this one. This is our normal setup. When what happened here in the take, we checked if the game over was paused, then we checked if paused game. And when you do something like that in one line, it's you have to be careful. And the reason why you have to be careful, because you can see this is a condition, and if this condition changed, this one becomes true, and all the other conditions here will be not fired. For example, we have here again a condition, and this one is a general bad practice what I make here. This is bad coding. And the reason for that is, like I said, this one here is depending now on this one here. You can see this one and this one can cancel each other and the functionality can be disturbed, but in my case I made it so that I know that it will not. But in general, you still try to avoid this. And one way to avoid this is, for example, use a sequence. And a sequence is you press here, right click, go here, write sequence. This is the sequence node, and then normally you can say, okay, execute this line of code first, check this one out in a separate line. For example, here, this one, let's do this one here. And then you say, okay, after you check this one, go to the next line and check this one. And then these two variables are still dependent a little bit, because this sequence here is executing first and this one is executing second. But then it means just that this one fired first and then you wanted to interrupt it or something like that. So what I want to point out is the sequence will first go through this line here, and then after finishing this one, it goes to the next line here. So like I said, you have to be careful with this setup what I have here, because they should not depend in one execution line here. That can break, depends on the setup of the code. All right, that's only a side note. I hope you manage it better than me in another way, or like this, but you check just the conditions that all time it will be okay. For example, let me show you this one again because it's so important. In my case, if game over is fired, doesn't matter what comes next, I don't care. It should stop. That's why I don't care about this condition here, pause condition. But yeah, that's very important. For example, if this game over is fired, and here was another condition which is also important, still important after this condition would be fired, then that would cause a problem. That's the main reason why I repeat this, because in this simple game what I make here, you can see it's easy to see, but in a complex game where you have many conditions, you should not do something like that. Then you start, yeah, not something like good things happen. Then you will probably have bugs. Okay, enough talk with that. Let's solve our problem. So I use a sequence in this case because this one here should happen in the next line, which means it finished this one here, and then I go and check this one here in a second line. And so what I'm doing here actually, first of all, I have not explained you this line here. I should explain you now what we do. I explain it. So let's put them first. Let's push them a little bit higher. Let's select them here. And let's explain them step by step. First of all, like I said, when I start my game, my life should trigger when I'm 0 here. Now it should go trigger and my game over screen, but you can see now it's nothing. And now we have to set this up here. So how we set this up? Again, I need my life, which I get from my setup here, which is a reference to my player character, because my player character got this live setup, right? So I get this player reference this time directly, and now I said, okay, give me this live number, live. Okay, here is my get player live, and now I can make a comparison and say, okay, if this player live is 0, I want that you start my custom game over here function, which we set up in the last video. Here we simulated this one with this P, in my case with this P or O key, and now I will delete this one because we will triggering it from this point here. So the next thing is I need a comparison, and what I do is then I write here equal, so I compare, for example, equal to 0. I can compare this value, my value, to the 0, and if this one is 0, I say, okay, let's make a branch here, and now I can say if this is true, because then I know it's 0, my life is 0, then please trigger this function here. All right. If it's true, game over, call game over. All right, this is my custom function, game over. And if it's not true, then do nothing. That's it. Because then the game should go on. And this game, when I call game over, the game will automatically pause. The game will automatically, you can see it here, will pause. The visibility will set and all the stuff what we already discussed. All right. So that's a very easy setup. And that's I make here on the second line. And let's comment this out here. Let's make here a fast comment. Check live and call game over and call game over. If 0, that's enough. All right, something like that. And that's cool. The selector is not so important to comment out. And yeah, we can test this. And we can see now, here is my 2, 1, and 0. And here is my game over screen. And all this game over screen we already set up. Okay, that's it for this video. The only thing what you can do now after testing this collision box, you can reset your collision box. You select your collision, right again, hidden here, hidden, or hit. And then hidden in game, you will find this and reset this one here. Compile, save, and do the same thing for obstacle. Let's select the collision box here and hidden. So hidden in game. This is just a reset. That was just for test purposes. If you want to test something like that. And yeah, with that said, one more thing, perhaps source control. Let's submit this one fast. So we have the source control here, many changes, and I write just finished live setup. That's enough. Submit this one. And now with that set, of course you should normally test this, bring all the code to the original project and test the package version, but I skipped this because I have too less time now. I make this later. All right, with that said, I stop this video here, and like all time, if you have any questions or complaints, write it in the comments and see us in the next. Bye, good luck, and like all time, don't give up, have fun.